Hi and welcome to this DigitalOcean VPS tutorial. So I'm going to show you exactly how you get a VPS up and running with DigitalOcean. So the first thing you need to do is create yourself an account, and then once you've done that and you've verified your email address, you can then log in through the DigitalOcean website and create yourself your very first VPS. So you just log in using your username and password that you will have created. And then straight away I'm into the control panel and I can see existing VPSs that I've already got running under my account. The first thing just to mention really is that DigitalOcean like to use this term droplets to describe their VPSs. There's nothing different between a droplet and a VPS other than for DigitalOcean it's kind of a marketing term really that they're using. So just to clear up any confusion there really. And to deploy a new VPS, I just click on Create Droplet, and I'm presented with a list of different options that are available to me. So the first thing to mention is the host name for the droplet. Now this can be anything you want, but I would just recommend that if you've got a domain name and you are looking at using this VPS to host something under that domain name, like a website or WordPress site or Joomla site, whatever it is that you're looking to do, I would always recommend that you use the domain name as the host name of your server. And there's kind of lots of reasons for that really. The main one being just for spam purposes. If you're going to be sending email from your web server, then if you send an email to Google, to a Gmail address for example, Google will look at the email server that's sending it and it'll try and do some anti-spam kind of measures to prevent spam. And some of the services, what they do is they look at the host name of the server to try and verify that the sending email address matches the host name of the server. And there are things you can do to get around that, but why make life harder for yourself, especially if you're quite new to all of this? So from the offset I would always say give it the name of a server that you actually, for a domain name that you actually own. And I just do it like that. I actually put the extension. So for example, if it was Google, I could do google.com, and that would be it. I wouldn't just put Google, but actually the full DNS name or the full domain name. Okay, the next thing you want to do is you want to select the size of your VPS. Now the really cool thing about DigitalOcean is I can start with a VPS on $5 a month, and without losing any data or having to rebuild anything, or without having to go through and manually make loads of changes, quickly scale up my VPS through all the different levels that they offer on here. So I could start with a $5 a month VPS and scale it right the way up to $640 a month VPS without having to change anything on the server other than using the control panel to resize it. And that's pretty cool really. If you're used to traditional hosting, then what you'll find is that if you outgrow your web host, then you'll have to move your website to a different server, and that can be time consuming. It can just take you ages to do it. You know, sometimes if your website's really popular, that is the last thing you want to have to do. You know, your business is taking off, you're making money online, you're doing whatever it is that you're doing, and all of a sudden you're forced into this change of moving your website. I've had to do that before, and it is not fun, and that's one of the reasons now why I use cloud providers like DigitalOcean to do all my websites, just because I have this ability at the click of a button to be able to move to all these different levels. Very straightforward. So the other beauty about this being able to flex between the two of them is I would always build my VPS on $5 a month. And the reason is even if I've got a really complex application that I've developed, until you upload it onto your droplet, onto your VPS, you're not actually going to know how it performs. So you may find on the benchmarking that you've done within your own lab environment that you're thinking, well, I'm going to need a $20 a month account to do that. But you don't actually know until you upload it. And so you can stick it on here, see how it performs. If it's not performing well enough, then move it onto the $10 a month, move it onto the $20 a month, but it's not going to cost you anything in terms of time in order to move that. It literally takes about 30 seconds, and we'll do a tutorial on that at a later date, showing you how you resize your droplet with DigitalOcean. The other thing that's worth mentioning here is they give you an hourly price and a monthly price. So the hourly price is just a capped amount if your VPS is running all the time. So if you go for this VPS, then that's what you'll be charged for the hour, and then it will be capped at that much for the month. So that is the fixed amount. You don't need to look at it and think, oh, hang on a minute, where are the two? What they do is they deliberately put caps in place if your VPS is running or is available for a full month. The next thing to think about is the region that you want to deploy your VPS in. Now, I've put VPSs with DigitalOcean in each of these locations, probably with the exception of Singapore. And the reason I've done that is for I wanted to build a website for somebody who predominantly they were based in the US and they were accessing services. Or I've got people that are based in Europe who are accessing my websites. So what I'll do is I'll try and build them geographically closer to the people that are going to be accessing it. You know, when I first started doing that websites, that was quite a common thing. But in all honesty, have I noticed a website that I've got in New York where I'm accessing it from where I'm based in the UK? Have I noticed it being any slower or quicker than direct in London? In all honesty, not. There are other reasons that you may want to do that, and that's to do with some of these advanced settings down here, but I won't go into those. I'll cover those on a future tutorial. What I want to do today is show you just how quickly you can go from having nothing to a live VPS up and running. So thing to mention really about your regions are, unlike this, when you select the size of your VPS, you can flex it very easy. Moving a server from one region to another region is a little bit more tricky, and I will again go into a tutorial to show you how to do it. But just like picking the droplet host name, what I would recommend that you do is just think about the location a little bit, put a little bit of extra thought into that, because you don't want to have to move it. You know, if you can avoid moving it at a future date, then again, make life easier for yourself. So I'm going to go for $5 a month, and I'm going to pick London as the location. Touch briefly on private networking. I'm going to leave these options for another tutorial, but the only one I'm going to mention at this stage is backups, and that's because there is an additional charge for using the backups. And what this is just an automated way of the DigitalOcean platform from backing up your VPSs for you. And as you can see, you get 4 weekly snapshots for your droplets with a backup plan. Now, backups and snapshots are slightly different in that a snapshot is something that you take. So you can do an ad hoc backup of your server. It doesn't show you that in here because we're creating one, but you can do an ad hoc backup of your VPS, and there's no charge for that. But if you want the peace of mind that DigitalOcean are going to take on your backups for you, then select this option here. Then the next option I've got available to me is which flavor of Linux do I want to use for my VPS. So if you're quite new to all this, I would recommend Ubuntu or CentOS. That's my personal preference. Especially if you're doing web servers, because they're pretty stable and reliable for that. If you've got other reasons for your application why you want to use any of the other flavors of Linux, then use those by all means. But most of my experience is with Ubuntu and CentOS. With Ubuntu, I tend to try and pick a version that's about 8 months old. So I'm recording this particular tutorial in April of 2015. So I would go with this version here. And the reason I would go with that is because this version here is almost a year old. And so, I tend to try and stay within 12 months of the latest version when I'm doing a new VPS. So that would take me exactly on 12 months. So it's probably right at the older age of what I want to use. So I would go with this one. If this was in, say, December 2014, then I would probably go with this version, because this one's only 2 months old and it's a little bit kind of bleeding edge. It's a little bit newer than I want to be using. But either Ubuntu or CentOS. The other thing to mention with CentOS is if you're going to go for version 7, probably $5 a month VPS is a little bit underpowered to be able to run this. So what you're likely to get is into problems with services crashing, because it's a little bit underpowered. So I would go for 6.5 of CentOS, 64-bit, again with the $5 one. $10 if you want to go for version 7 or higher. Most things I've found on CentOS run fine on version 6.5. And typically I always try and pick the 64-bit versions of each of the operating systems. Again, I could probably go into the differences between 64-bit and 32-bit, but again, that's probably a bit more of an advanced tutorial, and I just want to quickly show you what are the important options that you need to get your VPS up and running. Your next option is that you can pick applications. So if you want to run a WordPress site, you just click WordPress and it will install it for you. Same with Drupal, Joomla, all the different application options. And again, maybe in a blog post or a tutorial we can go a little bit more in depth into these, but I use WordPress a lot for my sites, and I've gone as simple as just clicking that and hitting deploy, and you have a WordPress site up and running within about 60 seconds. Snapshots, I've touched on that briefly before. If I've got a previous VPS and I've taken a snapshot of it, then I can deploy a new VPS using that snapshot. Same with backups, and same with destroyed droplets. If I've accidentally destroyed a droplet, then I can tick an option whereby it will keep the data for so long, and then if I want to, I can deploy a VPS from a destroyed droplet. So on this one, I'm going to go with CentOS 6.5. I'm going to leave all the other options as they are, and then I'm just going to go create droplet. But just before I do that, SSH keys, again, they're quite an advanced option, but they're basically so that you don't have to use a username and password to log onto your VPS. Now you might be thinking, oh, that doesn't sound too secure, but actually it is really secure, because what it means is that I have to have a key on my machine before I can log on to that VPS. So if I don't select this option, I can go onto any server in the world or any computer in the world. I can SSH to the server, and if I know the username and password, I can log on to that server. So this is just a way of adding enhanced security. Again, quite an advanced tutorial, and I'll probably cover that at a later date, but just wanting to just cover this just to give you an idea of what the basic options are really. So just to recap, give it a host name, make sure it's a domain name that you own. Select $5 a month because I can always resize very easily. Pick the location. I'm based in the UK, so I'm going to go with London. I'm not going to select backups because I'm going to destroy this VPS anyway when I finish this tutorial. I don't have any backups or snapshots I can deploy from. I don't want a predefined application because I want to do some of my own stuff, but it is a web server type thing, so I'm going to go with CentOS 6.5, and then I'm going to hit create droplet. What will happen is in the background, DigitalOcean will start to build my VPS. And as you can see, it's a pretty rapid process. Now, if I had my email client open at the moment, it's around about the 30-second mark. You will get an email from DigitalOcean, and contained in that email is the IP address of your VPS. Will also be the username and the password that you need to log on to your VPS. If you've deployed something like WordPress as well, it will also contain things like your WordPress username and password. And quickly, just to test, I can see here, got the IP address. I can see that it's active. I can see that it's in London and that it's running version 6.5. So everything that I selected is predefined. And just to make sure that my VPS is up and running, I click on Access, click on Console Access, and as you can see here, this is what a Linux server looks like if I was to physically go into DigitalOcean's data center and was to plug a keyboard, mouse and monitor into it, so I get a screen view of my VPS from wherever I am in the world, which again is pretty powerful. But I think in terms of this tutorial, as you can see, I've gone from deploying nothing to a VPS in a pretty rapid time, and we'll do another tutorial on actually managing and some advanced configuration options for a DigitalOcean VPS. So thank you for watching.